Last week I introduced you guys the 5 movement patterns, the major movement patterns. Now, we can break these down into many subcategories, but we're just going to talk about the 5. Knee, all right, class is in session. What's up, everybody? Patrick Thompson with Never Been Stronger and Personal Training by Patrick Thompson. This is Whiteboard Wednesday. Last week, if you watched the episode, we talked about the knee joint major movement pattern. Now we're going to talk about the hip joint. So the 5 major movement patterns is the knee, hip, push, pull, and core. Now these break down into subcategories, just depending on the plane, what joints loaded more, etc. But we're just going to start simple. Very beginning, we're going to talk about the hip joint movement pattern, mainly flexion, a little bit of extension. So why are we talking about this? A lot of people tend to have tight hamstrings, tight lower back, pain in the lower back, tight hip flexors, things of that nature. So we're talking about this one because when we go into hip flexion, a lot of people tend to arch their lower back, just don't look very comfortable. So here's a trick to help you learn how to properly do the hip flexion movement pattern. So we're going to start with our toes forward, shoulders back, chest is upright, weights back on our heels. Now we're going to keep our knees locked. If you don't want to lock your knees, you can keep them slightly unlocked, not bent, but locked or slightly unlocked. I'm going to keep mine locked. So I'm going to start my hip hinge in a flexion mode. So right here, boom, 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 boom. I'm pushing my hips back, loading my hamstrings, and feeling the stretch in my hamstrings. And I come back up, there's 1, back, 2. Now, that's the correct way. If you feel like you're not doing it right, you may look a little something like this. So, the reason for that is because tight hamstrings, tight glutes, that causes your lower back to compensate on what needs to be stretched and lengthened. So here's your take home, your homework class. You guys got to do this, otherwise you won't get an A+. So go home, sit on the floor, put your feet out in front of you, reach for your toes. You guys have done this in gym class over the last 7 semesters and 7 years of class. Sit down on the floor, reach for your toes, stretch out those hamstrings, so that way you can properly do a hip flexion here, back up. So, recap. 5 major movement patterns, talk about the hip joint today, mainly in a flexion. The other one is extension, but we're really talking about flexion today. Next week we have the push, pull, core. Again, what's your homework? Go home, sit on the floor, keep your feet out in front of you, reach with your hands out in front of you, reach for your toes, don't arch your back, reach, feel your hamstrings stretch, so that way when you go to the gym next time, your lower back's not hurting you, you get stronger, and you just feel better overall. My name is Patrick Thompson with Never Been Stronger and Personal Training by Patrick Thompson. This is Whiteboard Wednesday.